Welcome back. I'm going to show you how to make this grow stand with LED full spectrum grow lights that will fit 4 10-20 trays per rack. First, we're going to take the reel of LED strip lighting out of the package. Here you can see it. There's a good look of the lights themselves. In this part, I'm going to go ahead and measure out the length of the rack itself so we don't have any wasted space and we're not wasting too much of our strip lighting. Here you can see how I've lined up the lights themselves at the end of the rack. At this end, we're going to cut to length. If you notice the little copper piece there, I'm going to cut it on the long side so I have more surface area to work with when I'm doing the wiring. Alright, and here you see where the end was cut off. I need to clip this little extra piece so that I'm able to make a connection as I use a little bit wider piece with that copper so I have more surface area. So I have to cut off that little extra tab there. Don't worry, you have plenty of LED strip lighting to cover this entire rack. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these cut all to length and get ready to start soldering the wiring together to make them work. This gives you a look at the approximate spread or location of the strip lighting itself once the rack will be finished. Here on the end of these strip lights, there's a little gel dome that's on the top. We need to remove that in order to be able to connect our wires. So I'm going to go ahead and cut down, but not all the way through, just past the copper tabs. And I'm going to do that on both sides before peeling that little piece up and then taking it off completely. So you can see here where I'm going to peel this back to separate the gel top and the copper tabs underneath. Just like that. To connect the individual strips, I'm using a 2-wire or 2-conductor thermostat wiring I found at the local big box store. You can see there on the reel. And here I'm going to add a couple pieces of heat shrink tubing to help clean the ends up a little bit, just a little bit later after we get done soldering the wire onto the strips itself. We'll go ahead and solder the connections. Alright, there we go. Both sides have been soldered. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide the shrink tubing or heat shrink tube over. Now I'm going to clip the very corner of the tab itself, not the soldered connection and not the copper itself, just the little edge so that the heat shrink tubing will slide on just a little bit easier. And then we'll go ahead and touch it with the torch and shrink it down for a nice secure connection there. So here you go, you'll see where I'm just going to take just a little corner off so we can get that heat shrink tubing on there nice and easy. Alright, just finishing up the heat shrink on this last one here. There you go, looks good. Now we're going to go ahead and test the lights. I've made quite a few of these, so I'm pretty confident in my connections, but if you're doing them for the first time, please test your lights before you do the heat shrink. It will make your life much easier. So there you go, lights are on, and they're working really well. So we'll go ahead and get the rack put together. Here you go, picture of all the lights on the racks. The strip lights are held in place by zip ties about every 10 inches or so, just so they don't sag, and it helps keep them in place. So here's a couple of 10-20 trays or 10-20 flats on top of the racks, and you can see you get 4 across, and they overhang just a little bit. Now here on the left you're going to see a temporary wiring harness for all the racks themselves. I'm going to go ahead and make one that's a little bit better than that. I just wanted to make sure they all worked before I built a permanent wiring harness for the lights. But so far everything is working great.